I'm so happy because today I get to do exhaust valve maintenance on the Scuzzy. Yay for me. Thankfully, they're really accessible. Yeah, not really. So while I dig into this process, I'm going to go to VoiceOver so I can curse the 1,000 springs that are holding this exhaust system in. So a little tip for getting these springs out, if you don't have a spring puller, use an old screwdriver. Just kind of carve or grind a little hook into the end. But that little hook is a great way to hook the springs and then pull them on and off. If not, these things are a pain in the balls. Exhaust valves have become really popular in the 90s and have stuck with performance two-strokes ever since. Think of them as a crude way to mechanically introduce variable valve timing in two-cycle engines where there are no valves. This system is basically there to optimize the performance at both low and high RPM, which is always a compromise on two-strokes. With the pipes out of the way on the Scuzzy, I'm going to use this used engine to kind of show you how they work, which is pretty simple. Basically, the exhaust valves on a Rotax motor are called rave valves, and what they do, like all exhaust valves, is at low RPM, there's a guillotine that's kind of blocking off a bit of the exhaust port. At higher RPM, that guillotine, in this case, gets moved out of the way with the assistance of exhaust gas pressure and opens up that exhaust port, giving you that high-end performance you're looking for. It's pretty simple. Now, back to VoiceOver while I get the rave valves out of that sled. Obviously, these valves live in a pretty bad environment, which is why they need to be on a cleaning schedule. Deposits from the burnt exhaust gases gum them up, and because there isn't a lot of power moving them in and out, just exhaust pressure and this delicate return spring for the rave valves, they basically get stuck and stop moving. So like I mentioned before, some of these exhaust valve systems are activated by cables, but essentially they all do the same job. They all live in the same environment, they're all gonna get dirty, and that means they're all gonna have to get cleaned. Now there's the why you have to do this maintenance. For the how, your best bet is to go to YouTube and download the correct procedure for your exact machine. Now, I'm still gonna walk through the cleaning procedure for these rave valves, but other systems could be a little bit different, and you wanna make sure you get it right. Whichever type of exhaust valve system you have, you will probably need a gasket and O-ring set, and I strongly suggest picking one up before you begin. You may get lucky and you can reuse the old gaskets, but these kits are pretty cheap, and if you don't need them, they don't go bad. Taking the system apart, the best thing to do is keep everything in order if you don't know it by heart. You'll also need some kind of solvent to help break down the deposit, so have that on hand too. And the other thing to remember is you don't want to damage anything, so don't use scrapers or hard files, and no grinders with wire wheels either. Be extra careful cleaning up the aluminum jugs too. Now it's hard to get down inside the bores, and you will be tempted to use a screwdriver to shove a rag in there. I'm not saying don't do that or that I've never done that, just be real careful. You can scratch things up in there pretty easily. Don't go overboard with solvents either. They can wash garbage down into the crankcase. Assembly is pretty straightforward. Now, I do like to do all three valves at the same time. It's a little faster, but you can do them one at a time as well. Either way, this is not a difficult job. And like I mentioned earlier, there's tons of videos online that will go into all kinds of detail for your specific application. So even a novice mechanic can get this job done. So there's always going to be a couple of details to pay attention to, like what side is the top side for the guillotine, and if there's any ports in the gaskets that you need to pay attention to. If you get this stuff wrong, you could cause damage, or the exhaust valves aren't going to work at all. Timing wise for a job like this, it's gonna probably take you a couple hours, nothing more. But if there was a problem with the exhaust valves and you get them working again, you're definitely gonna notice a difference in the performance of your machine.